You're looking there at four major Texas Senate contenders competing in Democratic and Republican primaries that have taken on new significance this time around because control of the Senate is in play, and even deep red Texas could be too. Some polls have closed there. CNN Chief National Correspondent John King starts off our coverage. So where do the races in Texas stand right now, John?
Anderson, we are counting the first votes of this consequential midterm year, so that is breaking news in its own right, but we have a long way to go before we know anything clear about these two marquee Senate races, primaries in Texas tonight, plus a few great House primaries as well we'll want to watch. This is the Republican map as we have right here, but just the fact that we're talking about this, right, tells you something. John Cornyn is a long-time Senate incumbent Republican from the state of Texas, and yet he faces a big primary challenge this year from the MAGA conservative Ken Paxton. Now, the president has not endorsed in this race. He says he likes all of the candidates. Congressman Wesley Hunt is running as well. We're very early on in the vote count. You see Senator Cornyn ahead a bit there by 21,000 votes. We just got our first votes in Dallas County. That's the second largest in the state. And you see that Senator Cornyn is leading there. If he is to win this primary, you have to get 50%. 50% plus one, or else we have a runoff down the road a little bit between the two top candidates. This is what Senator Cornyn would have to do. Think of this as establishment versus Trump, if you will. We've talked about this for years. Establishment Republicans like Cornyn in a primary, he has to win in the urban areas where you have the suburbs, the more affluent, college-educated Republicans, not so Trumpy Republicans. They might vote for Trump, but they're not so Trumpy, and look for Paxton when we get out here in all these rural counties to run it up like Trump does. So we're going to watch this one as it plays out on the Republican side. Again, a competitive Republican primary involving an incumbent who was in the Senate leadership is a big deal. It tells you about tension within the Republican family. Now, the question, as you mentioned, is this the year? How many years have we said might Texas finally go blue, at least for a cycle? You have two prominent Democrats running here. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, she's ahead at the moment, just shy of 52% of the vote. State Senator, seminarian James Tallarico is running there.
CNN can make a projection in the North Carolina Senate primary. On the Democratic side, former Governor Roy Cooper projected to win, and on the Republican side, it is Michael Whatley.
Just look at the Senate Democratic primary. Tallarico has pulled into the lead. Crockett was ahead early on.
As Texas counts the votes, we were talking primary politics and what it could mean. To that, we go to John King. Before the break, he called it a monumental midterm year. John?
It is a big year. Remember 2018, that put the brakes on the Trump presidency. Democrats won the House. Nancy Pelosi became Speaker. The question is, does that have again? President's approval rating right now tells you it's a possibility. Texas is leading us off on the first big primary. And I'll just give you a quick update on the Senate race right now. State Senator James Tallarico, 52% to 47% if you round up for Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. What's interesting about this, Anderson, Jeff Zeleny told us earlier, Dallas extended the voting hours for a couple hours, so we have to wait to see when those big Democratic location comes. And then the question here on the Republican side, does somebody get to 50% plus one? That would avoid a runoff. None of the campaigns think that will happen. Senator John Cornyn, the incumbent, ahead right now at 44% when you round up. The Attorney General Ken Paxton, a very MAGA candidate, at 39.
The other big breaking news here at home is it's election night, the very first primary elections of the midterms, and what is a key year for the White House and Congress here in Washington. We're keeping a close eye right now on Texas, where most of the polls have now closed, though Dallas County voting has been extended for one more hour after there was some confusion among voters about the correct polling locations. In the race for the U.S. Senate on the Democratic side, the state representative James Tallarico is leading right now Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett with about 35% of the vote in. We're still watching those numbers incredibly closely. In the Republican primary, the incumbent Senator John Cornyn is now leading with just over 30% of the vote in. That is the election night music as votes are coming in a critical Senate primary race in Texas. It has major implications for the upcoming midterm elections. On the Democratic side, the state representative James Tallarico right now is leading Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett with about 44% of the vote in. In the Republican primary, the incumbent Senator John Cornyn is leading with just about 46% of the vote in.
State Representative James Tallarico is now a 7-point lead in this race. 7-point, stretching out near 8 points. 92,000. His lead has been stretching out over the last hour or so. But at the moment, you see 43-41 as the map fills in. Half the vote counted at 50%. Is it conceivable? Mathematically, yes. But it's been this way, Abby, for quite a long time. It looks like the Democrats will pick their standard bearer tonight, and the Republicans, in the most expensive Senate race in history already, will have to fight it out through May. 69,000 right now. See, what happened? What happened? While we were talking, some Dallas votes came in. When you came to me, Tallarico, the state representative, was up by 111,000. Now he's up by 69,000. Why? Because we got our first votes from Dallas County tonight in the Democratic primary. But if you look at the math now, 61% of the vote in. The lead, Tallarico, last time we spoke, I think it was around 60,000. It's gone back up to 71,500 votes. It's 52% to 47% if you look at the percentages.
Yeah, and John, let's take a look at the Republican race right now. Are we in territory where we know this is going to be a runoff?
We're very close. We're very close. Same dynamic I just said. You get the early votes in, then you're looking for election day votes, and then you just want to double check and triple check your math, right? It's the first night of the primary season. There's no reason to be in a rush about anything, but your eyes don't lie here. If you just look at the math, we're up to about 60% of the vote in the Republican primary. You're at 43% to 40%. It's John Cornyn, the Republican incumbent, at 43%. Ken Paxton, the state attorney general, at 40%. And Congressman Wesley Hunt at 13%, if you round that up. Your eyes don't lie. Somebody has to get to 50 plus 1, and you're at 60% of the vote. And this margin has held for pretty much the last few hours as more votes have come in. The margin has been pretty consistent. And so your eyes tell you and your gut tells you you're headed for a runoff. But again...
John,
go ahead.
John, as you're talking, I'm being told that we are making the call. This is officially headed to a runoff. It'll be John Cornyn against Ken Paxton in a Republican runoff just ahead. I mean, this is the scenario that some Republicans wanted to get ahead of, but it looks like it is going to happen. It is going to happen in the next few weeks.
Good evening, I'm Laura Coates on this busy election night where there is some major drama in the Democratic Senate primary in Texas. Right now, Texas State Rep James Tallarico is leading Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett in the race to be the Democratic nominee for Senate. Both are trying to do what no Democrat has done in a generation, win a statewide race in Texas, which has not happened since 1994. But this primary just got more complicated because the Texas Supreme Court has blocked an earlier ruling that allowed extended voting hours in Dallas County. The court said any votes that came in after the original closing time should not be counted tonight while the case is litigated. They should be separated. Moments ago, Crockett spoke, saying she thinks it's unlikely that a winner will even be known tonight. On the Republican side, incumbent Senator John Cornyn will be headed to a bruising runoff against Attorney General Ken Paxton after neither candidate cleared 50% plus 1 of the vote. Our reporters and analysts are here to cover it all tonight, and I want to start with CNN's John King, who was at the Magic Wall. John, tell me, how important is the vote count out of Dallas County for that Tallarico Crockett race?
Well, obviously, it is her home base, and every vote counts. And on this first primary night of 2026, we certainly want to start by making sure every vote is counted. But let's look at it. The question is, though, Laura, we'll see what happens in the courts, and we'll see which ballots they count. Hopefully, they count them all if people were in line and thought they could vote. The question is it enough? Is it enough? Because you look right now at the race, the state representative, as you mentioned, James Tallarico, leading there 52 to 47. So he's got a 5-point lead, or 70, just shy of 75,000 votes at the moment, with about 63% of the vote counted.
A live look at the headquarters of Democratic State Representative James Tallarico in Austin, Texas, where we're waiting to see if he'll speak tonight as his race for Texas Senate against Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett remains too early to call. Let's get to CNN's John King at the Magic Wall. John King, tell me what you're seeing.
So you look at this, you see 52 to 47, you see 85,920 votes ahead, and you ask the smart question at home, why haven't you called this race? Let me try to explain it to you. You've heard some controversy tonight about Dallas County. This is where Congressman Jasmine Crockett's district is. She says that she wants some votes counted. There's been a court case. The state Supreme Court has said, wait a minute, only if you voted before 7 o'clock. We want that to go forward. As someone who's done this for 40 years, I hope everybody who was in line at 7 o'clock gets their vote counted. But, and this is important, but, there would have to be 100,000, 200,000 votes here. There's no indication there's anywhere near that. That's not the issue. We want those votes to be counted, but Congresswoman Crockett would need tens of thousands of votes to overcome. Republican incumbent in Texas getting 42% of the vote. That's not good. That's not good if you're the incumbent senator in your state in the Republican primary. The Attorney General, Ken Paxton, who is an election denier like Donald Trump, has sued to help Donald Trump in a lot of lawsuits in the courts. A much more Trumpy candidate getting 41%. Congressman Wesley Hunt, who's also been a Trump ally, Republicans there are going to call him the spoiler in this race at 13. What does this mean? This is definitely going to a runoff here.
We're following the close race in the Democratic primary for Texas Senate. James Talarico and Jasmine Crockett are currently separated by about 85,000 votes. Let's talk about what's going on with the Republican Dan Crenshaw. He's in trouble.
So one of the interesting things here, you look at this is the Texas Republican map. I'll give you two races, including the one you just mentioned. Make sure I get into the right one here. Whoops, move over here. There we go. Dan Crenshaw, very well known, nationally visible Republican, is losing in his primary. We have not called this race yet, but 62% of the vote in, he's losing, 58% to 39%. Dan Crenshaw is a very conservative Texas Republican who occasionally runs afoul of Donald Trump. And this is what can happen to you in a primary election when you do that, even in a red state like Texas. So, again, we're not at the finish line yet, but your eyes don't lie about the margin there. And it's just an interesting dynamic. When you talk in this election year, when people say, Trump's approval rating is underwater, why don't more Republicans stand up and challenge Donald Trump when they disagree with Donald Trump on tariffs or on this or on that? Well, this is one of the reasons why. Because in a primary campaign, if you are seen as not being with Trump, it can, in many places in the country, including Texas, hurt you. I just want to give you one more footnote. Been a lot of talk about Tony Gonzalez. This is the Republican incumbent from Texas who tragically had a former congressional aide commit suicide. You've seen the text messages of an alleged relationship between them. I won't get into the details. But the House Republican leadership did not withdraw their endorsements of Tony Gonzalez. They had hoped that he would lose his primary. We're only at 66% of the vote. He's 897 votes ahead right now. So we're not going to know the answer here until tomorrow, maybe even days as they count the votes. But the Republican leadership was hoping that the voters would solve their problem and send Tony Gonzalez home. Unclear if that will happen. He's leading at the moment.
The big story in politics, it is election night in Texas, where it is now election morning, and a legal battle is brewing over the U.S. Senate Democratic primary. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and State House Representative James Talarico are locked in a close race. You see, Talarico is ahead, but there is confusion over where to vote in some places, which prompted election officials to extend hours. Now the Texas Supreme Court has weighed in, saying those provisional ballots may not count. Meanwhile, the Republican candidates headed for a runoff. Neither incumbent Senator John Cornyn nor Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton got the required 50% of the vote, so they will go head-to-head in May. We want to get some big breaking news in the world of politics. CNN now projecting that James Talarico will win the Democratic primary and advance after a tough and close fight against Jasmine Crockett. But James Talarico will advance to the general election. The Republican primary is now not at a place where there will now be a runoff in the Republican primary with John Cornyn or Ken Paxton, but whoever wins that will face James Talarico. The Texas representative is advancing. That is the breaking news. We will have more news here on The Story Is when we come back. The war with Iran and that breaking news out of Texas. More of The Story Is, a special extra hour next.
CNN can finally project a winner in perhaps the most closely watched primary in the country. In Texas, State Representative James Talarico will win the Democratic Senate race, defeating U.S. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Confusion over where to vote led election officials to extend their hours at some locations. Crockett has threatened legal action. On the Republican side, CNN projects incumbent Senator John Cornyn and State Attorney General Ken Paxton are headed for a runoff. In North Carolina, CNN projects former two-term Governor Roy Cooper will win the Democratic Senate primary. This November, he will face former Republican National Committee Chairman Michael Whatley to replace retiring Republican Thom Tillis. Turning to Arkansas, CNN projects incumbent Senator Tom Cotton will easily win the Republican Senate primary. Hallie Schaffner is projected to win the Democratic primary. She is a 6th sixth-generation farmer who says she recently closed her family farm due to economic challenges.
Can I follow up on that
Cornyn on the
one
shoulder.
idea? Because the president did not come off the fence
Yeah.
for the Crenshaw vote. Now, this is a vet. There's a whole world of people who are of that military generation who are in Congress as a result. But in the end, even he was not considered.
He's not all. He has not been up and down the line loyal. I mean, Trump loyalty is a one-way street for Donald Trump.
All right, just in from Texas. This is interesting. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett conceded to James Tallarico in the Democratic Senate primary there. Notable because it was a hotly contested race and there were some questions about voting there. But she has now conceded, meaning he has a clear path all the way to November. Not so clear on the Republican side, where there is a runoff between Attorney General Ken Paxton and the incumbent Republican Senator John Cornyn. So we'll see over the next 3 months who wins there.
Senator John Cornyn is playing a game of Texas Hold'em. He may just have pulled an inside straight. He shocked Texas Republicans by finishing ahead of MAGA firebrand Ken Paxton, who led most primary polls by double digits. No one got 50%. That means this is now a runoff. Now, both candidates have 12 more weeks to make their case to voters. It's going to be ugly. Let's turn to another sort of shocker last night, and that is Dan Crenshaw, a Republican congressman in Texas. He was, I think, the only incumbent Republican running for re-election that didn't get an endorsement from President Trump on the House side. He lost by 15 points to Steve Tooth. And just real quick, Tony Gonzalez, we've been covering him on the show and elsewhere because of allegations against him, text messages that came out about an extramarital affair. He was in a primary and he lost the primary, but there's also going to be a runoff.
Yes.
So he's still in the hunt.